Well, I think anybody involved in football, it's that thing of maintaining as much of a balance as you can. But there must be a little spring in the step everybody after a win.
Well, I hope so. The players deserved the success that they created on Tuesday. So, yeah, tough game, but we came away with, I think, what we deserved. So, yeah.
And at times this season, you've played well without always getting what you deserve. What do you think sort of tipped it over the line in this particular match? Was something that you did as a team better?
Well, I think we avoided unnecessary mistakes, which is always going to, keeping a clean sheet certainly gives you a better chance of winning a game. Obviously. So, no, I mean, the players were just very focused on trying to get the job done. And they've tried to do that, I say all season. We're only a few games in, let's be honest. 5 games in total. So the performances have been pretty positive.
And clean sheets were a real problem last year, not
they were.
But getting one relatively early this season, is that something you hope, obviously, to build on?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the start of last season, if you remember, all right, yeah, clean sheets were a problem throughout the season, but we were pretty tight at the early part of last season. It's just that we found it difficult to create and convert chances. So we've changed, or we've evolved somewhat as a team, and I think there's been some very positive things. But the journey can sometimes feel frustrating. But no, I was just. It was good to get a home win. It was good to finally play in a pretty convincing way. I mean, I know we did that in the cup game, but the league is the most important aspect of our season. So, yeah, pleasing to get that win. And so this weekend we get an opportunity to back that up with another good performance and hopefully another win. But it will be a tough game because they've made many changes this summer, changed their style quite considerably. So it'll be I think a very good game.
Yeah, I was interested in what you said after the match about getting the apology from the PGMOL about the penalties. And a lot of City fans have sort of spent the last while looking through the lack of penalties they've had even before your time. Is that something you can even spend time looking at and thinking, well, hang on, why is this happening to us? Is it just an anomaly?
I don't know the answer to that, if I'm totally honest, but I think we'll give them the opportunity of looking into it themselves. At the moment, my focus is not on stuff like that. Although I've been interested to read people's opinions. Just get on with it, really.
Yeah. And that's what you do, but it's just one of those things. I guess in a sport where one goal is a huge thing, these little incidents can get blown up out of all proportion or be really massively important.
Of course they are. Look, we want fairness and consistency is what I think everybody in sport wants. That's a huge part of the ethos of sport. And that is that there has to be a set of rules which apply to everybody, and unfortunately we have been on the receiving end of many dubious decisions, and unfortunately it has a cumulative effect, and I don't think it's healthy for the game. And I've made my point pretty clear, I think, but it's up to authorities to speak about that, look into it, and find a solution, because it can damage the integrity of the game.
And in the heat of the moment, it's very easy to get frustrated by that. How do you sort of deal with it? Over the course of a couple of days or a week, can you sort of internalise that, given that these decisions can be so important?
Look, I've spoken to the people that I need to speak to about it, and I've heard other people's opinions on what they think about what I say, and quite frankly, I'm not bothered really.
So ahead of the weekend, have you got anybody who's been sort of there or thereabouts coming back into contention, sort of squad-wise?
Be more or less the same squad. So Yeah, we'll just have to check on one or two people tomorrow. But yeah, we're relatively lucky at the moment to have a fit-ish squad. We've got 2 or 3 players missing, but obviously Sykesy will be suspended for this one, which is a shame because he's been a very good performer for us so far this year. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and obviously lots of decisions to make in terms of those key positions, but we talked about Tommy Conway in midweek, which is understandable given his age, but I thought Nahki Wells he's been on the periphery for a little bit, but every time you sort of throw him in, there's never anything less than that sort of wholehearted desire to come on and make a real impact.
Nahki's a player that, even though he's in his 30s, has huge enthusiasm, and I think that is he's competitive too. He wants to force his way into the side and retain his place, and I think that's very, very healthy. So no problems with that at all, and but I don't sort of divulge before games what it's going to look like at the weekend, but I think it's very healthy to have good competition that's driven by the players, and that's players who haven't stayed haven't really been able to deal with those types of challenges, and but Nahki's been very good.
You mentioned the sort of change at Cardiff, and they have gone from being a more direct team to adding a little bit more to their game. But in these derby environments, you get some sort of funny aspects of the game. It can go a bit that way, even just by the crowd willing you on, sort of thing.
Look, it's the thing about derbies is that there's a lot of emotion attached to it, both in terms of fan bases, players, and it's very important to recognise the importance of the game, but it's also very important to be able to perform, and so in some ways detach yourself from the emotional aspects of it. But it will be a very hard-fought game, I'm sure, from both sides, and whoever comes out on top will have earned it, I think.
Yeah, and I'm interested because you've been involved in plenty of these as a player at your clubs. How did you deal with it? Was it something that, as you went through your career, you sort of got a bit more used to?
I think that there is an excitement with it and a sense of having to deal with other people's expectations, which is a part of it, but you, like I say, you have to get into a mode as a player, certainly, to be able to harness the energy within the stadium, but remain inwardly calm and be able to make good decisions on the pitch. So that's what good players do.
And I guess the more you play, the easier that gets, or you get more experience of trying to do that. You've got a few youngsters in your squad that maybe haven't been in that situation. Is that something you have to sort of address with them a little bit ahead of time?
No, I mean, part of the selection process is believing that the players can handle dealing with the situation. So you're right in the one sense, but actually more senior players might have experienced some negative things in their career which will be blockages for them. So, the youth versus experience argument's always an interesting one, because there's no one answer for that sort of an issue. But the selection of our team for this weekend will be based on who we think as staff will be the best starting 11 and bench, because the bench is always as important in many ways as the starting 11. And I've said many times before that the selection of the bench isn't down to keeping players happy. It's about what permutations may be required during the game. And so again, it will, sometimes people want to read into those selection conundrums, if you like, with why certain people are on the bench. It's because they've not been selected for this game. Simple.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
No, I imagine the derbies you've been involved in as a player and a manager, do you still get that burst of excitement?
When you walk out on the build-up is for me for all games has to be measured and but the atmosphere on match days is still something that it's important you try and enjoy the experience, or at least get stimulated by it. And I think that's the the different. I don't expect all players to behave in the same way, because they're different people. So I would never either agree or disagree with people's own experiences, or how big games affect them. But like I've said before, you've got to be able to perform. So you've probably heard the term over arousal, of players, and that can affect performance. And so it's important to be ready for the game and prepared for it. But you've got to have some sort of control as well, because otherwise it can hamper decision making.
Did it affect you as a player?
I can't honestly remember what I was like as a player. In all honesty, what I can tell you is in my latter years, my own personal preparation was autopilot, really. And I presume when I was younger, I was able to deal with the situations I was in because my career progressed. So but I can't hand on heart tell you what I was like as a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 25-year-old, and 35-year-old. Those days are long gone.
Have you seen the statistics, the Bristol City penalty statistics that have come out?
Yeah, I'm aware of them. Yeah.
They're pretty remarkable. Do you have an opinion on it?
My opinion will be aired. I made my opinion, I think, crystal clear the other night, what I think. I can't explain it, and that's not for me to explain, actually. So, I always hear with interest what people say, and I came in for some criticism, but from people who don't have any gravitas in terms of, or a person doesn't have any gravitas with opinions on football management.
But by speaking about so vocally, being so candid about it, is that providing encouragement? Do you think that would provide encouragement for other managers to come out now and
There is no. When I speak after a game, it's based on what I feel. People have got their own opinions, and they are entitled to them. I don't know what other people will say. I try and look after. Okay, so somebody had mentioned me being in victim mode. Well, I think we are victims. The football club is a victim of inequality. I can't explain the statistics, but it's worrying.
it's pretty remarkable. I wanted to ask you about Conway. I think after the Burton commentary game, he said how he developed psychologically over the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you meant by that? Can you elaborate?
On
And psychologically how he has developed.
he's able to deal with the pressures of being able to perform. He trains well. He has a thirst for learning his trade, both off his peers, off the coaching staff. He's given himself the best chance of being a success, on top of having the ability to be a very good finisher and utilise his physical attributes, because his ability to make sort of dynamic runs and repeat them over a sustained period is, that's one of his big strengths. And he has decent self-perception. You've got to know what you are before you can maximise the gifts that you have. So, and then on top of that, he works at it. So he's got humility about him as well, and I think he understands where he is at the moment, but he's competitive.
It was nice to hear him speaking afterwards about him living with Alex Scott and the relationship that those two have together. As a manager, I imagine that's great for you to hear that,
I just think it's good to have young players who are good enough and who are capable of dealing with the challenge of what is a really tough league. And that's why, going back to the refereeing side of it, that's why I think there's almost a dismissive element of the championships. Well, the Premier, it's all about the Premier League, and quite rightly so in the one sense, but actually the Championship is the way into the Premier League, and so I think we need the support mechanisms, certainly for the referees, the officials, to help them get it right. And so, for players coming into for young players coming into the Championship, it can be a bit of a for some of them it can be a bit of a shock. But we've got young players capable of dealing with the challenge. Not all at the same rate, but Alex Scott's done exceptionally well, and so has Tommy, amongst others as well.
The support mechanisms are even like VAR and micing up referees.
Yeah, I mean, technology is there to assist, or it should be, and to eliminate, or not eliminate them, but minimise the risk of mistakes. I think that's what it should be about. And there has to be an element of accountability about it too, because that is, there's a lot at stake, and we have professional referees, and so they should be supported with technology. But that also, with that, of course, comes the accountability, because there is so much at stake.
Yes, but Semenyo, you said on Wednesday that he was going to have a scan either this week or next. Just wondering if he's had that scan.
Yeah, he's had it. Yeah, he's okay. He's making progress. Yeah.
I'm sure this weekend is too soon for him. Is he in the process?
Yeah, it's not something I've even thought about, to be honest with you. His intensity of his training's being increased, and it's just one of those things where we've got to make sure that it's not rushed.
How's Stephen Batchage getting on with his recovery?
Yeah, he's had a positive scan result this week as well. So hopefully over the next 2 or 3 weeks, his training will be increased. Of course, with goalkeepers it's a bit different. And certainly with having a wrist injury like he had, or has had to deal with. Clearly it dominates the training program. So, but he's had good news, and hopefully, like I say, 2-3 weeks he will be, I suppose, doing more. The type of training he'll do will be more in keeping with everybody else. Yeah, but he's making really good progress. Yeah. So he's using his time well. Let's put it like that. In terms of becoming a fully fledged member of the first team squad. So because he's spending obviously a lot of time in and around the in the treatment room, which is one of the main hubs of any training ground, and it is here.
Yeah, I saw him at the 21 training
Yeah.
Finally, is there any situation still the same with him?
In what sense? Do you mean selection or?
In terms of
No, I don't. No, and I try not at the moment to have that as in the forefront of my mind. That's as far as I'm concerned, when he's selected to play, and if he plays well, it's it's good for us and him. So outside of that, no. Okay.
Obviously, David Ireland's gone to Conway.
Yeah.
Clearly, you know well. How much of a beneficial experience will that be for him?
Hopefully it will be, be positive for him. You know, breaking into the squad at the end of last year and having a couple of appearances, you know, I think it's important to recognise that sometimes players' development is not smooth, and so we've already been talking about a couple of youngsters there, in Tommy and Alex Scott, who have had a very smooth transition, in the sense that they've been able to go into the side, perform well, and they've not really had setbacks yet. They could do. You know, Dunk's had a pretty quick rise to get in 2 sub appearances for us, and I think he's had a bit of a struggle adjusting, and I think this will be a really good challenge for him. And I know he'll be looked after well there. I mean, Simo will, you know, he's going to somewhere where the manager will be well aware of his needs, and that's good.
And even if you change the last game as Conway down there, and you spoke earlier in the summer, is it the case of the right time for both parties to part ways when they did in the summer?
Yeah, I think I've already said that, and I like Callum a lot, so not particularly wishing him too well for this weekend, but you know, I think you get sometimes to a part of your career that you need to make career decisions, and so that's what's happened.